So as always, every day I fill the water tank, usually whether it needs it or not. Well, specifically when it's sunny. When it's real cloudy, I don't. I just washed my coat, which was kind of nice. Usually I take my coat into the laundromat because it's so big that I never wanted the Carolyn to have to wash it by hand. But now they got the wash machine, I went ahead and washed it. So we'll put in probably about 50 gallons. Probably should slow it down. I don't want to run the well out of water. The water's only got, I think, 30 feet of water. I think it's 30 feet. It's 6-inch diameter hole. So you can actually figure that out, get on Google. I used to know it. Figure out how much water that is per gallon. Circumference or something, I forget what it is. I thought I'd kind of talk about the well a little bit today. Had a viewer says she's new to the channel and she just paid off some property, but the well doesn't work and the septic doesn't work. Unfortunately, my code enforcement guy asked me not to talk about my septic too much on YouTube because I had a troll that was causing all kinds of problems when we first got here, calling code enforcement different things. So I wanted to kind of discuss how this well works. It's 100, I think 100 and some odd feet well, maybe it's just 100 feet. Essentially you have a 6-inch hole down here at the bottom and a little metal tube comes out of it. Ours only came out maybe 2 inches. That is the well liner. Those steel tubes wear out over time. This well is well over 40 years old, or maybe right at 40 years old. And so over time, roots and different things kind of grow into that well liner, it rusts and it breaks apart. I said well liner, it's well casing. So what you do to fix that is you can put in a well liner. And so you see my PVC pipe here. That is a well liner. I used a well packer. Now I'm going to do something a little different in this video that I think a lot of people like. The other day I did a compilation video of first 5 days that we were here. I really am proud of this well. That I had to do all the research. I didn't understand wells at all, and I was able to get this into a usable state. It didn't have a well pump in it, didn't have anything. I'm going to show you how I put the well packer in this video, but the first thing I want you to understand is you see a come along in the video. So the come along is attached to the well liner, the PVC pipe here, up in the air. It's taller than me, and I had to bring that pipe down. So what I did was I ran a couple 2x6s here on the ground and I attached them with a couple stumps that I got. They're kind of rotted now, but there's a stump there and there was a stump over there. I could have backed the truck up and I could use the truck, the bumper, to hold the 2x6 together. I actually had to use two 2x6s. I screwed them together. I could have used the lawnmower, weighted down, something so I could pull that down with a come along. This lady said she's having trouble with her well, and I don't know what the problem is. But you could reverse that process. Sometimes these wells are pretty deep, so you have to somehow pull the pipe out, and it's really heavy because it's full of water. So you could actually do the opposite, and I'm going to show you what I did with this well packer. You could do the opposite. You could put that 2x6 up in the air with a frame and supports and different things, and you could hook your come along to the pipe and pull it out. Also, you'll see a clamp that I made, so if it fell, it wouldn't fall down. Then I'm going to lower down the well packer while the flex glue is drying, along with the well liner, which is the PVC pipe here. Now see, I have two options that I want to try with my come along when I drag that into the well casing. Is I could hook it right here, put a PVC collar on here, and hook my come along right here to the top. But I'm going to try this too. This is just a U-bolt that goes around it here, and I put a 2x4. The reason I did this is in case for some reason it decides to drop on its own, it won't fall into the hole. This will catch it. So I'm just a little bit of precaution so I don't lose everything that I've done. I'll also use this when it's all finished. I'll just put this right at the bottom where the floor of the well is. And then I'm going to concrete around this pipe. Keep this thing from moving around too much. So here's where I'm going to glue on the well packer onto the PVC pipe, and I'm going to start sliding it down the hole. So, moment of truth. Okay, so this is primer. You put this on both sides, and then you put glue on both sides, and you connect them together. So there's the connection. Going in perfectly. So this is going to go pretty smooth. The hardest part is I'm going to have to stretch out the come along. I got to hook that up to the back of the truck and pull it because there's two switches you got to hold at the same time. This is going to go good. Okay, so I got the piping into the ground. I don't know how much you can see here with all the, it's such a small space, it's hard to get a camera in here. So I'm going to leave this out of the ground like this. That way groundwater can't get into it. It'll be nice and high. I'm supposed to do it 3 feet. I think this is like, I don't know, 3.5 feet. It doesn't matter. And so I'll lower the pump down into this. And then once I get the pump in, then I'm going to put a 90-degree elbow in here like this. And that way water can't get into it. I'll cap this off. I'll have to drill a hole so the pipe and the wire and the rope all can come out. Something I forgot to mention is when I started lowering this down, it went down real easy. I could push it down by hand. And that had me concerned because it's supposed to be tight. But after I got past about 10 feet, it was almost impossible to get it down. So the come along that I used, and then using this board that I screwed into 2 stumps, I showed you that in the previous video. It really was, you could hear the boards cracking and creaking. And so I was really happy that it tightened up. Now, the other thing we did in that same video, and at the end of this video, I'll put an up next box to that video so you can see the whole thing in its entirety. I replaced pumps. When we got here, the well didn't have a pump in it, and I knew that. So before we moved down here, I researched how could I run a well, a shallow well. This isn't a shallow well, it's actually a deep well, but it's not very deep. It's, like I said, 130 feet. So I was trying to figure out how to run a well off my generator. Now it's running off solar panels. Still the same thing. I had a 2,000 watt generator. I got a 2,000 watt inverter off my solar panels. I would have to be able to figure out how to run it without 220 volt. So I got on Amazon and I found this pump. Now it's very rusted and people really complain about that in the comment section of the Amazon thing. You know, the review, it does rust, and that is a downside to it, but it's never really affected me too bad. Now, this is a 30 gallon a minute well pump, and it's 110. I now have a 15 gallon well pump in there, and it's a 110. I'd much prefer to have the 15 gallon. So I'm gonna play the clip now where I hooked all this up. So what you're about ready to see is I pulled this well pump out. This was only in there for a year. So I bought 2 pumps is my point. This one, and then a smaller one. I had to run the smaller one because the well liner, the PVC pipe, is a 4-inch diameter. Well, this is a 4-inch diameter. It wouldn't have fit, so I had to get a smaller one. I think that one there in the well now is 3-inch diameter. But overall, it worked out much better. I need to get the pump transferred from, well, the hose and the wiring transferred from the old pump to the new pump. So I got to splice the wiring. Then I got to take the pipe and put it onto the new pump. And I'm going to do that first because I'm going to use flex glue. When you wire the well pump, you want to make sure that no water gets into the wiring and shorts each other out, because you'll have a huge ground problem at that point and you won't be able to use the generator on it. So last year I used all the items that came with the well. You got these little brass tips, you got these rubber grommet seals that you heat up and they shrink around it. You got this waterproof tape, and then I went ahead and used, well, I guess it's flex glue is what I used. It takes about an hour before it gets tacky, you know, where it's dry to the touch. Flex glue also dries under water. Now when you wire this up, it's not hard. You can't get it backwards. There's only one wire you get backwards, and it's tagged. That right there, the yellow wire, the yellow and green wire actually, is tagged. That's your ground, and these are your two hots. So this is a 110 volt, so you can just plug this right into your wall. So you put it black on black, I guess, and blue on white. It doesn't matter. It says in instructions you can reverse them. As long as that one goes on to the ground wire. So when you actually look at your wiring, there'll be a one that is not a color, it's just copper. Okay, since this is a smaller pump, this is a 3-inch pump. I think the other one was a 4-inch pump. The fitting for the hose here, right here, was smaller. Now I had a 1-inch hose. The old one was 1 1/4 inch, but I had to downsize it to a 1-inch hose. So I had to get a new one of these. Now I got a neat little trick to show you how to get this onto the hose, because it's really tough to get this onto the black hose. So I'm gonna put some Teflon tape on it. Okay, so Teflon tape it's not really tape. It looks like tape, but it's not sticky. It's just a white material, I guess Teflon. And you wrap it around the threads. And the reason you do this is so you'll get a better seal. Now you want to make sure that you wrap it in the opposite direction of the turn. Otherwise it just unwinds from itself. Now I'm not entirely sure you have to do this with plastic components, but I always do it anyways. Okay, so this is the clamp that the hardware store sold me the last time I did this. So it's not like the regular screw clamps that you see on your car. You have to use this tool. I guess they sell it to you this way, so you have to buy the tool. It's a one-use tool, and then you just squeeze it. So you put this on. Now the trick I'm going to show you to get this on, the hose onto the pump, or onto the piece. See, if I do it this way, you'll never get it on. So what you do is you heat up the hose just a little bit, don't melt it. And it slides right on. Works great. And then you just take your clamp, you slide the clamp down, and you got to squeeze it. Now since then, I have done much more work. I've put a concrete base down there. So the original hole that you might have seen in that video, the well casing, the metal pipe, is completely covered up with concrete now. And it comes up about 6 inches over that. And then I put this building over it, and I've dug a ditch over here. And now I think I mentioned in that video that the water was getting dirty. Okay, so the pump's in. Now I've got a little bar here that's tied to the rope. So all the weight now is on the rope, hanging onto this. This is such a better design than what I had before with that board running across and rope to twist it up. All right, well, we have water. It doesn't get dirty anymore. This is completely perfect now. It works great. I've not had a problem with it since I've dug this ditch. I was telling you prior to showing that clip that if you wanted to pull your well pump out, depending on how deep it is, it may be too heavy. This one is almost too heavy for me. Fortunately, I told you I drilled a hole in the pipe, so the pipe isn't full of water. If it was full of water, it would be really heavy. If you could build yourself a frame with that come along, like I was telling you, you could pull that out basically the same way I pushed in the well liner, the PVC pipe. The other thing is depending on how deep your well is, and again, you can Google this. If you get on Amazon, this pump will tell you on Amazon how high it can go. I don't remember what it is. Let's say it was 250 feet. Beyond that, you probably have to have a 220 pump because horsepower, which you're starting to peak out how many amps you can run off 110 volts. So then you have to switch over to 220 and lower your amps. It's all the same wattage. So 120 times, let's just say 10 amps. I think this is 8 amps, but just make math easy, is 1,020 watts. So if you switch that over to 220, then you would have 5 amps, which give you roughly 120. I know that's not perfect math, but you get the idea. 1020 watts. If you had to get a 220, the wiring would be a little bit different, but again, like you saw in that video, all you would have to do is line up the wiring so it matched up. You take wiring off your old pump, put it on a new pump, or just get on YouTube and learn how to wire it. It's not that hard. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to click this up next box, it'll take you to the original video. So hope I can inspire you. Don't be scared, so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.